I'm Christina.
And I'm Matt.
And this is New Ways Podcast. Today our guest is a breathwork facilitator and a cold plunge coach. He's positively impacted so many lives, including our own, Gianni Neiviller. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Sandwiched between the two of you.
We're going to get really up close and personal today, to say the least.
Yes.
Definitely. So we're just going to start with the very basics right now. So I've met you through Breathwork, which you and your wife Kiki do the classes I attend, and they're absolutely amazing and have influenced my life so much. Genuinely, like, I can't thank you enough. And how about you share with our viewers then, what is Breathwork? Because I feel like it's not something that everybody knows about.
No, it's not. And I always tell people in our class, if you could find a breathworker in your town, go do it. Mm-hmm. Go do it. What is breathwork? It is so many things, you know. First and obvious, it's breathing deeply into your diaphragm, shifting that oxygen upwards into your chest, allowing that beautiful, life-giving oxygen that is the sustainer of all life on earth to do what it needs to do in the body. We are all, I'm going to say we are all, many people today are shallow breathers. Rapid 12 to even up to 20 breaths per minute. And they don't realize it, but what they're doing is they're staying in that low level fight or flight. Mm. So when you do a breathwork session and you breathe the way I guide people really, really deep into that fight or flight intentionally, our nervous system knows the difference. Many people be like, why are you telling me to breathe in and out through my mouth, like as if I'm in a panic mode? Because again, your nervous system knows the difference.
Yeah.
So that way, when you are done with this practice, you are able to respond to whatever outer stimulus happens. Let's say we're in LA, we could talk about earthquakes, right? If an earthquake hits, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to go into fight, right?
Yeah.
Your body responds that way. The exact way your body responds to this outer stimulus is the exact same way you could actually bring your nervous system down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you react, right? If you've done breath work on a regular basis and you've practiced at it, your nervous system already knows what to do immediately. Mm-hmm. It may take a few seconds, but rather than exacerbating that panic mode, your brain, your nervous system knows, okay, slow it down. Assess the situation and do the right thing, you know?
Yeah, like not everything needs that parasympathetic, like fight or flight response all the time.
Well, obviously, it's what's kept our species alive, right?
Yeah.
So we do need fight or flight. But the problem is, in modern times, in modern living, you know, that email from your boss or that argument you had with your spouse, your nervous system thinks it's that saber-toothed tiger chasing you, and it responds the same way.
Even as you just said it now, I immediately had to like remind myself, okay, take a deep breath.
Like you're safe. This isn't something that requires that big of a response and that system activation. And because that's one of the things when I tell people, like, that's kind of what's going on during breath work. They're like, why would I ever want to activate that? They're like, that sounds crazy to me. So also, besides just retraining your nervous system in a way is what I'm hearing, it kind of teaches you to rewire it. What other impacts can breathwork have on your body?
Well, the physical benefits, you're expanding your diaphragm, you're expanding your lung capacity, you're reaching deep down into your emotions by doing that. Our brain, our prefrontal cortex, is like our filter. It's like our adult filter. And when we start breathing in that way, we essentially turn it off. We diminish the amount of oxygen going to that part of the brain, and the brain, the body being intelligent, we have to keep this machine alive. It sends all of the oxygen to the amygdala, to the limbic system, the autonomic part of our brain. And when all of that goes there and we turn off the filter, what happens? We start to emote. We start to let it go, as you hear me say all the time in a breathwork session.
I know. I've personally experienced some crazy stuff that didn't even know was possible to bring up from breathing. I tell people all the time, like, it's like therapy, except you actually don't have to talk. Like, your body just kind of naturally, like, shows you everything that's been hindering you and lets you acknowledge it and release it. So I'm forever grateful for it. But I've never heard you describe it in so much depth as right now, and I really appreciate that. Because I know me and Matt have had our own personal experiences in your class where it's like, that's been the most beneficial for me, as I'm just like, I feel so much lighter after.
Yeah. I what I love about it the most is that biology, that science I just described to you, but I love the spiritual aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
And I love how it combines both the spiritual and the scientific. That's my favorite part about breathwork. It allows you to go deep within, and as you've heard me say so many times, it's not just about letting go. It's about getting some answers. It's about reconnecting with your intuition, with that wise gut that we all have, that has been kind of clouded through this modern living. So you're back to benefits. You're also getting some clarity, getting some answers, finding out who you really are.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I'm curious too, how did you get into breathwork? Because I feel like a lot of times people often have had their own life-changing experience with things that they're now teaching. Was that how it was for you, or?
Yeah, it's such a windy road. I'll probably get the timeline wrong, but it started with getting sober first.
Okay.
And I kind of was in and out of sobriety. I got a good chunk in, good 5 years almost. And those 5 years were great, but I knew there was more. And then I fell off the wagon, as they say, and I didn't really go as down as I was before. I didn't hit rock bottom, let's say, even though my bottom was pretty high from the get-go. I realized that those 5 years of being sober were really good, but there was something not fully hitting the mark, you know? And so I don't know, I was out meaning drinking and smoking weed.
Yeah.
About 3.5 years, and I decided I'm going to go back, and kind of got a few months in, a few months out, a few months in, a few months out. Then I decided, okay, enough of this. I'm done. I need to figure out something other than just abstaining from drinking and smoking. So I got really into my health over a 9-month period. Mind you, I was still in and out of drinking, but for a good 9 months, I was really into my health, and I lost 86 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. I've gained about 30 of it back now, but...
Did you intentionally try to lose that weight, or was it just okay?
No, I did. Yeah. And it was through my doctor. She put me on this program. It was great. Yeah. It worked. 9 months, 86 pounds. Some will say that's too much, too fast.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's why I gained the 30 back. I don't know. But so I got to my goal weight, and I said, okay, I'm here. Now I'm really going to get sober.
Yes.
And now this is where the timeline gets a little fuzzy. A good friend of mine sent me a text with a podcast.
Love it. Love it.
And here we are.
Full circle.
On a podcast. That podcast opened my eyes. I mean, not just the host, but the guest on it, a guy named Luke Story, who I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have not actually.
So he has a show called The Lifestylist, and he is sober, and he was saying things that I was really connecting with, and then he was using some terms that I'd never heard, like biohacker, and he was talking about how he experiments on himself. Talk about an addict, but he experiments with all of these modalities and all of this stuff. And I was like, what is he talking about? I couldn't figure it all out, but I was just really taking it all in. And he kept saying this thing that I thought I heard, cold punch.
Cold punch?
I thought it was cold punch. And I was like, what is this cold punch that he's talking about? And then...
Sounds delicious. Cold punch. Right. Like, I'll take a glass of that.
And then, so listening to him and I found out through Lacey Phillips, which was the show I heard him on. I went to his show and I was like, oh, he has a show too? And then from his show, I found another person. And then from that person, I found another, and so forth and so on. And I just kept finding all these new podcasts.
You went down the rabbit hole.
I went down that rabbit hole. And a handful of them kept saying this thing, cold punch. And I was like, what the hell is this cold punch? Right now. And of course, that led me to the master, I guess you could say, Tony Robbins.
Oh, I love Tony, yeah.
Because they were talking about that they learned it through Tony Robbins.
Okay,
the cold punch. Anyway, long story short, it turns out it was a cold plunge.
I was going to say, I'm like, was it actually that or like...
It was a cold plunge. And I only figured it out when I think it was Tony Robbins, or it could have been Dave Asprey. One of these people I saw a video of them actually getting into a cold bath, in a cold tub. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what it is. I think I went to the store that same day that I figured it out and bought like 10 bags of ice. I threw them in my bathtub. I had a panic attack.
From getting in the water?
Yeah.
I hear that a lot, actually.
It overflowed. So let me backtrack. About 10 years prior, Kiki, my wife, and I were on a camping trip. And we usually camp. When we camp, we have our own a tent that's one you could stand in. Mm-hmm. And a friend of ours invited us on this camping trip, and it was kind of last minute, and I can't remember, but we ended up using their 2-man tent. Okay. And it was like this high off the ground. And I was still drinking at the time, smoking a lot of weed, and we crawled into the tent. It was like 1 a.m. It was in Joshua Tree, and it was a moonless night. It was super dark. And we got into that tent, and within 10 minutes, I had like a claustrophobic panic attack. I'd never experienced anything of the sort before that in my life. And it took me a good hour and a half to finally like calm down and fall asleep. So I only bring that up because when I got into that cold plunge, into that ice bath, those exact feelings came up. And I was alone at home. I was able to overcome it by getting out. Yeah. But I was like, damn, that was awful. I didn't understand why. Like, I kept hearing all of these podcasters, biohackers talking about how beneficial and how great it is. And I was like, that sucked. But either on my own, I came to this conclusion, or listening to more, I learned that, as you hear me say, getting uncomfortable is how we grow. So I said, screw it. I'm going to do it again. I did it again the next day, and I was able to down-regulate my response, my nervous system, by just breathing in and out through the nose. I really, really gave it I gave it a little more reverence, right? I didn't just jump in and try to let's see how this works. And lo and behold, I had the experience that they were talking about. And I had no idea what breathwork was yet. weeks, days, I don't know. Timeline is a blur.
So you found cold plunging first, and then
Yes.
you went into breath work.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so within that month or so, I discovered this guy on Instagram named Alex. Breathing Cold Bali was his Instagram handle, and he was doing a lot of these cold plunges. And I really loved the way he talked, French accent. He was just super chill, great vibe, great energy. And I started liking his stuff. And he reached out to me. Of course, he was marketing. He was trying to get some students, but he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I should say I did post on my Instagram a few of my attempts at cold plunging."
Okay.
Right. So he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I see that you've liked a lot of my stuff. I commented on a few things." He thanked me for the comments, and he said, "I see that you have a few videos of you doing this." He said, "I happen to have a teacher training starting next month. Are you interested?" And this was in the middle of lockdown. And he's in Bali. So,
Oh, wow.
Right. And so my initial reaction was like, I can't get to Bali,
Yeah.
dude. It's and he said, no. This time I'm doing I'm doing it online. Something just told me, walk through this door, get in there, do this. And I took his course and never looked back.
So right away, you kind of you're like, this stuff is amazing.
It wasn't right away.
No? Okay.
Wasn't right away. It was a long, windy road. I would even go so far as saying it started in the 90s.
Yeah.
Not specifically cold plunging or breath work, but wellness, bettering myself. I read back in the 90s, when I was in my 20s, I read a bunch of the self-help books that were popular in the 90s. And all I did was read them. I didn't apply or implement any of the stuff I was learning. Yeah.
You have to apply what you learn, or else it's kind of just like...
Yeah, but it was a seed planted, I think.
Yeah. Question for you too is, were the self-help books back then similar to the ones that like are coming out now?
I think a lot of the books that are coming out now kind of use what they were talking about in the 90s as kind of a springboard. Yeah, I mean, what were the books back then? Oh my God, now I'm drawing a blank of all the books I read. What was his name? What's the...
I'm not too sure, but I asked that though because I feel like, and let alone I was just a baby in the 90s, so I'm not sure, but I feel like we're going through this transition where people are becoming more aware of like emotional intelligence and like wellness and taking care of themselves. That's why I'm like, for like me and Matt's parents' generation and like that generation in the 90s, I'm curious how the books were because I feel like it wasn't as widely spoke about or practiced back then either.
Maybe not widely, but there was
or
a
like
circle.
Accepted, you know. Yeah.
There were people into it.
Okay.
And the books that I like, The Letter was one. Who Stole My Cheese or Who Moved My Cheese? Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't.
That's a great book. You should check it out. Who Moved My Cheese? Tuesdays with Maury. Now, mind you, some of these books were not like self-help books.
Yeah.
They were storytelling books, but there was that message.
I love the storytelling though, because that's like what we even aim to do here is like, because don't get me wrong, I love self-help books, but a lot of people might find them boring. Like you're just reading about like a lot of them do repeat a lot of similar things. It's through people's personal experiences. And like that story, I feel like people can relate to and also be like, you know what, if they did it and they went through a similar situation or felt some of the same feelings, I can do it also.
Well, I mean, that's the best way to get a message across is to share your story.
Yeah. So you now teach in many different studios across LA, breathwork, and then your wife Kiki does the sound healing. What goes into putting one of those together? And also, like, what do you think is most beneficial when people show up? How do you guys know? Because there's been times where like you're saying something, Kiki's playing the bowls, or someone comes up to me and touches me, and it's exactly what I needed in that moment.
Well, as far as that part is concerned, I have no answer to that because it's intuitive,
Yeah.
especially Kiki. So if she comes up and touches or taps you, and it's like you said, it's at the right time at the like there's no way of really telling you. I can't say that I came up to you and touched you there because of this. It's like almost like a
Intuition.
divine intuition,
Yeah.
a divine, yeah.
It's like it's coming through me. I'm not actually creating like
It's coming through me, exactly. Yes,
I love that because I know I brought Matt to one of your breathwork class, and both of us after we were talking about it, and I'm like, there was one point Kiki was like, let it out, started shaking, and my body, you posted on Instagram actually, my body was just shaking, and I wasn't really even aware of how intense that experience was until I watched the video, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really needed that.
Yeah.
It's like you have no idea what you need until you're in the moment and you're like that. Felt like a weight was lifting off my shoulders. Same with Matt. Do you kind of want to share a little bit of your experience during that class?
I know I've been a little quiet over here, but I will say, like, I think for me, one of the reasons why having you on the podcast today, hands down, is probably one of the most exciting things for me, is just because, like, the transformative experience that I had in your class, and I still am processing it to this day. And we did that class about 7 weeks ago.
It was before Hawaii, so yeah, a while ago.
So, I mean, it was something that I had never quite experienced before. And I'm not someone to, like, I grew up in a very, like, kind of conservative country boy environment, and just that. So that was really never in, the playing cards to ever think about your breath and to think about breath work. And, so it's just to be in that experience and to have an open mind. I was skeptical going into it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was like, I'm going to lay on a mat.
I was nervous for you.
Breathe. And then you were like, make sure you have an inhaler next to you. And I'm like, oh, wait, I have asthma. Like, why would I need my inhaler? Like, what is happening here? Like, I only need my inhaler when I swim really fast or I run really fast, like one of the two. And I'm like, why am I going to need that? Oh my God, did I realize very quickly that I needed that inhaler.
But you didn't need it though, did you?
No, like, I think at the end, like, it was more just like the fact that, like, I could see why people needed it. Like, the breath work that was needed for it was crazy.
Yeah.
Because it actually is working your breath at its core. And it was, I mean, the amount of deep breathing and how fast you had to do it and stuff and talking. And I'll never forget even, your wife, Kiki coming over and just holding me, and she'd like, it's okay. It's okay. And I'll never forget crying in that moment because I felt like she was holding years of trauma and years of stress and so many years of just holding on to everything. And she's like, and she put her hand on my chest. She goes, it's okay. And I was like, okay. And it took that second. So that was such like a beautiful and such a transformative experience for me. So that's why I think still I'm quietly over here processing so much of it, because I just talking about it now reminds me so much of what happened in such a positive and beautiful way. Mm-hmm. So it's such an experience I will never forget. And it's an experience I am so lucky to be in the presence of you and your wife doing that work. So truly.
Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
I'm curious, how has your asthma been since then?
It's actually been amazing.
Like your breathing?
Like truly, like my breathing has been great. I was someone that, a lot of, my viewers know that I've struggled with asthma since I was a little kid. And it's been something that's been really, really difficult. And to be able to kind of put myself through that experience, I was a little scared. I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to stop halfway through and like need my inhaler. I'm going to need this. But the way that we were holding our breath and the way we were releasing it and then the way we were holding it again and then going in and out, in and out, in and out, it sort of, it held me all together in a way, which was so unique. And I thought, so, since then I haven't had the need to use it as much, which has also been so beautiful. So I've been very happy about that.
Were you, and I mean, you just shared, you just said you cried and Kiki held you and gave you permission to let go. Without being too personal here on
We're here to be personal though too. Yeah.
Very open here.
Please.
have you experienced a lot of grief in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of, mystics believe that word mystic is so mystical, but a lot of mystics believe that we hold our grief in our lungs. Yeah. And you say you've been able to breathe easier since then. How is the grief in your life? Like, are you able, so you were able to let go on that day. How has that been? Forget the breathing.
Yeah.
How's that been?
It's really fascinating. So I can't believe we're bringing this up, but I actually, and this is something we'll talk about on the podcast later as well, but I actually am a grief specialist.
Do you protect yourself? Like, remember how Kiki did right? Do you protect yourself before you start the camp, before you, engage with these kids?
It's interesting. Kiki actually did share with me a lot of the techniques that she used for self-protection. I used, I think, a smaller form of it in kind of my own way that was able to really sit with myself, but it was difficult. It was really difficult to keep myself protected in those moments because you're sitting there as an open soul in a way, letting other kids come into that space and people come into that space to use it. So in a way, I sort of had to become that sponge for people. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, wait, I got a lot holding on here and I need to figure out what to do with it. So then coming to see you that first time was such a transformative experience. And I remember it was really cool at the end of class. Something that I've never seen done before was you literally sat and it became group therapy afterwards. And you were like, who here felt that, through your experience, released something today? And I will never forget, like, just sitting in that moment of silence and just raising my hand and being like, I'm holding on to a lot of people's stuff.
Yeah.
Not even my own. And I felt like I released that for the first time in years. And that just, that was a lot.
That's almost the most important part of breath work. Breath work, as my teacher says, is prep work. The integration period is where the real healing begins. The breath work is just the bridge or the doorway into that healing room, that healing space.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the host right now, but I'd like to ask you another question.
No, absolutely.
Have you ever thought about why you went into that space of helping grief-stricken children?
Yeah.
I feel like these are things we talked about so much, and I love that you're opening up about it. So
I've lost some friends and I've lost some people who've passed away from depression. And so that's been a big part of it. And so I think that for me, going into experience camps with the knowledge that I have as a therapist, as a specialist in that way, and then coming in as a grief specialist was sort of a way of wanting me to heal a lot of that myself. And so I thought that would, and it was the thing I needed most, because through these kids in a way sort of taught me how to heal. And so that's where a lot of that sort of came from. They taught me in ways and taught me that in a way it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that took, I can't believe it. I had a 9-year-old telling me that. And that was just such a beautiful sort of transformative experience for me to sit there, listen to that.
Yeah.
So
definitely. That's why I'm like, I cannot praise you and Kiki enough for those classes. Like, I feel like you, just by being your authentic self and holding the space that you hold, you allow other people to open up about things that, like, they knew, they didn't know. Me personally, it's been what, like 2-3 years now that I've been going to your classes. The biggest thing for me with your classes is every single time I get a little bit more faith in like myself and the world, because growing up I was a very dark person. I didn't believe in many things. I just honestly thought there was a lot of darkness. And through so many of your classes, every single time I get a little bit of light in the world and also within myself. Like a lot of times my experience is just like these bright colors and these encouraging words and like confidence in myself. Every time I go into your class thinking I don't know the answer to something, I just come out with absolute clarity. And it's just like whenever I start feeling anxious or my chest feels heavy or I'm just like not feeling myself, I go to your class, I sit there and I'm like, I get scared still to this day. And I'm like, this is rough. Like sometimes you have to go through it to get through it. And like, I'm like, this is going to suck. And it's funny how you mentioned like the flow eventually, because when you start off, it's rough.
Yeah.
And then like, I love how you talked about even with cold plunging, how you optimize your potential and realize you can go through tough things. Because even then, like you start breathing and it's a little tough, but then like you do your first breath hold. And then after that, like it gets a little easier. And then you do your second breath hold and it gets a little easier. And you've even said like people have held their breath for like 3 minutes.
7.
Okay.
Yeah.
7 minutes in your class. And it's like, it just proves to us how amazing the human body and our potential really is. And we're capable of doing these amazing things. Like, I kind of want, did you ever think that right now, like in your life, you'd be sitting here like us praising you about you just being you and giving everyone the opportunity to experience these things?
Nope.
Like, it's beautiful.
It's funny you asked that because I was just thinking to myself, bless you.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I never would have imagined I'd be sitting here, let alone teaching, doing what I do for a living. I never, ever would have ever in a million years thought.
And you do it so seamlessly. Like you just keep going and flowing and you can tell it's coming from your heart. Is there a critical point in your life when you realized like I am stepping into my true authentic self and harnessing this energy in order to become like this incredibly grounded, like radiant person you are today? I feel like there has to be a choice kind of to be like, I'm stepping into who I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do.
I mean, it's a daily thing. There's no one day or one specific time that happened, but I can tell you straight up, I found my purpose.
Yeah.
And there's more to this journey I'm on. There's more. I don't know what it is. I do want to do more than breath work, or I want to still do breath work, but incorporate it into more.
Okay.
My personal struggles, let's say, are, and this is stuff you hear me say in class all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Just so you know, the stuff that I'm saying out loud in class is not just for you all.
Oh, I know.
It's for me too.
Yeah.
But that's why it hits so hard, is because you can see how much you're just like, wow, I needed to hear that too.
Yes, yes. So yeah, I struggle with a lot of the stuff like limiting beliefs, self-limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome. I all of that stuff, man. It's a daily reprieve.
Yeah.
But you hold yourself so well. I would have never noticed that at all. When I first met you, I was like, this man like changed my life. Like truly, you did. And you and your wife both did. And that's just like, for me, like you guys like held this space in for people that I have never seen done before in that way. And it's just like, I'm like, my God, like who, like, are you guys human? Like I was, at first I genuinely, cause you had such this wonderful smile on the face and everything. And I was nervous as hell walking in this room and a little skeptical. Right. And you just came in and your eyes were shined so bright and like, in who you were. And I was just like, who is this? Like, and it but it was so beautiful. It was so incredible.
Who am I?
Do you know what I mean? Right? It's a question we all ask ourselves sometimes. But no, genuinely, especially bringing you to his class too, where it's like, I love spirituality now and like stepping into like this existential like things that are available to us that aren't widely talked about. But like Matt's a newbie when it comes to this kind of like first experience with it. So, and I want to mention too, though, for all of our viewers, like his class is phenomenal for beginners too. Whenever I do a few breathwork studios, whenever I know somebody's like new to this, I bring them to you because your energy just walking in the room is so inviting and caring and authentic. I want you to know that like everybody's first time, I always bring them to you. And on that note too, it's like the entire experience of so immersive. Like Kiki plays the sound bowls, you play music and audio. How do you go about choosing that kind of stuff?
Oh, well, my background in music, I guess, has given me a leg up on that.
Okay.
I'm very choosy on what I play, and I curate my playlists almost every session. Last few months, I've been sticking to one playlist, and I'll change it as I go. Like on the spot, I'll change it. But every song you hear me play is one I've connected to myself, and made sure it flows with tempo, intensity. I've done a lot of breathwork sessions with other facilitators. Not to take anything away from them, they're great. But the one thing that lacks is the music. Sometimes they pick great songs.
Yeah.
And I sometimes will poach that song and use it myself for my sessions. But what I notice that they do is, and maybe perhaps because they're not musicians, but they'll just abruptly end a song.
Yeah.
And that drives me crazy. And it kind of I always tell you all to get out of your head.
Yeah.
That just puts me right into my head when I'm
because you're like, where'd the music go? Because I'll be breathing and vibing and flowing, and then it's like,
if it just abruptly ends and then the next song, like they'll just hit next.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, man, fade it out. Like, dude, like,
yeah.
I take music very seriously.
Okay. What's your background in music?
I'm a bass player.
Okay.
Played in a lot of bands.
Didn't you have your own band? I have to do this right now. Didn't you have your own?
I mean, I wouldn't call it my own. The guitar player and singer, my friend Armando, started it. I was his bass player. But yes, it was our band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a band. So music has been a big part of your life.
One among many. Music. Okay. You know what? We were talking about purpose.
Yeah.
Let's talk passion.
Okay, let's do it.
Purpose and passion. When you could combine the two.
Yeah.
That's a happy way to live.
I agree.
And that's what I have found here in Breathwork. I found my purpose, and I am very passionate about it. Now, music, I'm still super passionate about, but it wasn't a purpose.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It does bring joy to people. It does bring, emotions. Music is very powerful, but I found a way to combine the two. My ultimate, I've never shared this with anyone other than Kiki. I would love to record my own stuff and play that in my sessions.
You should.
I'm not good at I'm not
it's a limiting belief.
Oh, shit.
It's a limiting belief.
She got me.
Where there's a will, there is a way. And you have proven time in and time again to me that you are capable of so many things. I know.
Time consuming. Pro Tools, all of that, all of those technical things.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure you could find anybody want to help this fine man right here. I'm sure you could find people to help guide you. That would be amazing. I'm not saying go off on a limb right now and go get a studio, but like if that's something you want to do.
I certainly have a lot of friends that are in that space. Yeah. And I've had some offers. A good friend of mine offered. He's like, come over, spend the day, we'll hang out, and I'll make some music for you. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's there. I could do it. Yeah. It's just, I've bitten off more than I could chew.
Yeah, I would say find what resonates most with you and is going to make you the most happiest as well as like serve your purpose the most. But if that's something that like, hey, don't say I can't. Say it's either like, I'm not doing it yet or I don't want to.
There you go. I'm not doing it yet. One day.
Yeah.
It's up there on my highest goals to do, Maybe when Kiki have our own retreat center, because that's another big goal.
Oh, I love that.
Ooh, maybe that'll be a good time to bust
Yeah.
out with my own music.
He's over here like a little kid. I love it. But that's what I mean is like, also too, there's so many things that we can kind of talk about because I know you're so interested in so many things with wellness. That's just like another tool in your tool shed is the music. What I love about each one of your classes too is, yes, we do talk about breath work and releasing things, but I feel like you always try to sneak in little areas of how people can improve their lives. Like I remember, and this is so fun, I remember the last time when I brought Matt to breath work, we literally talked about, and this will bring us down more stuff, but like we talked about bidets and toilet paper.
I will never forget it.
And I'm like, I love
we
that
brought
we're
it up
talking
today
about
before
this.
the podcast. I was like, did you
These
use
classes,
toilet
you get
paper?
everything, you guys. Like, we talked about bidets and toilet paper. Come on, share us a little bit on those passions.
I don't remember that.
No?
I mean, I do talk about bidets, but I don't remember that particular day talking
was
about
great.
it. I think it was probably because we had just gotten ours, right? Is that?
I think
could that be
maybe
it?
you mentioned
Yeah.
you're like, it's life changing. All this toxic stuff we put on our body and in our body, like, you
Yeah.
need to get one. It's amazing.
Yeah. Toilet paper is toxic.
Okay.
Yeah, bidets, life changing. It's funny because I grew up with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Being of Italian immigrant parents, going to Italy every summer. All my cousins, every house in Italy has one, right?
Yeah.
And I was always like, I'm never going to use that thing. That's gross. I'm not, no way.
Yeah.
And I would not. I refused. And a couple of months ago, we went to a friend's house in San Diego to house sit, and he had one of the ones that are not a standalone one like in Europe, like the one I grew up with.
Those are kind of intimidating, I will admit. They are.
Yeah. They intimidated me. He had the one that is connected, like it's part of the toilet seat.
Okay.
And I tried it.
And?
I was like, oh, wow.
The new ones are amazing nowadays. Like, they're literally connected to your toilet seat. Yeah.
It was awesome.
Sam has one with a heated seat.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know what?
That is.
That my friend that we went back to house sit again actually like 2 weeks ago, and his comes with a remote control. It's like high tech. I turned the heating part off. I didn't like that.
Oh no.
I did not like the heating part.
So you're encouraging bidets because toilet paper is actually not the best for you.
I mean, yes, absolutely. That's one reason. You're also saving, right? Saving the planet.
True.
Right? And people talk about like recycled toilet paper. Man, that's even worse.
I've never heard of
Because-
recycled toilet paper. That doesn't sound.
Well, it's not toilet paper that's
It's
recycled.
from recycled paper?
It's paper that's recycled.
Okay.
But think about the
okay.
chemicals.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really gross. But the chemicals they have to use.
Could you imagine? Okay,
Sorry.
yeah, the chemicals they have to use.
To recycle the paper.
Yeah.
But I know where you're going here. I know where you're going, and we talked about this.
Yeah, and also things that I know this is something you're pretty passionate. So tell me your sleep stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're
or
going to go
unless
there.
did you have something else you wanted to go? I saw that look in your face.
Well, yeah, because we did talk about this
Go, let's
earlier.
go. What was it?
Kiki and I are making our own lotion.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I love it.
Oh wait, are you talking about sunscreen lotion or just lotion?
Well, sunscreen. I don't really believe in sunscreen.
Neither do I. Matt hates me for it. We were in Hawaii and he's like, Christina, what are you doing to yourself?
Well, to be fair, he is
I'm very fair.
Yeah.
on the Fitzpatrick scale, very low. I believe it's
Yes.
low.
Very.
But you just got to build your solar callus.
So you can do it.
It takes time, but you just have to build your solar callus.
See,
Didn't I share that? Like, it was a theory of mine. It was literally I'm convinced I just keep getting, because I'm German and Hungarian for the most part, like not really the darkest skin type. And I'm like, I just live in the
okay,
sun
so
now.
here's a question. So,
So I'm
how,
like, you
does,
can
one-
train
how
your-
does one do that in a safe way? Because like the UVs can be very intense
Okay.
for some people.
Well, let's start with sunglasses. Do you wear sunglasses?
Yes, every day.
Okay. Well, you have light eyes, and it's understandable. But what you want to do is start building your solar callus through the eyes. And far be it from me to really, I'm not an expert on this.
Yeah.
I would say start listening to a guy named Jack Kruse with a K,
Okay.
Kruse.
Okay.
It's a great episode, great podcast. Do you know Rick Rubin,
Yes.
the music producer? He
I
has a
love
great
him.
show.
His book is great.
Oh, his new book, I want to pick it up.
It's really good. It's a very easy read and it's very inspiring.
Have you listened to his podcast?
No, I have not.
It's called Tetragrammaton.
Okay.
Tetragrammaton.
Such a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this podcast now.
Okay.
So he has Jack Cruz on 4 episodes, 2 with Andrew Huberman. You heard of him, right?
No.
I've heard of him. I've actually watched him on a podcast a few times
Yeah,
too.
he has his own called the Huberman Lab.
These are great. Yeah, these are great podcasts you're
yeah.
mentioning too. I love them.
So he has 2 episodes, part 1 and 2, with Andrew Huberman and Jack Cruz. He has another one with Jack Cruz and some journalist. I forgot his name. And then he has another one with Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Jr. So Jack Cruz is the leading doctor when it comes to sunlight, our skin, mitochondria, telomeres. I don't know if you know what those words are. Solar callus. I think he actually came up with that term. He's the leading person. So I would say go down that rabbit hole. And just so your listeners know, if you search up Jack Cruz, you're going to just Google's just going to tell you he's a quack. But as we know, quacks usually are telling the truth.
Yeah.
So start with sunglasses. Slowly. Don't wear them all day long. Allow that sunlight to get in your eyes just for a little bit, then you can put them back on. But see, here's why I say sunglasses. And this is going to sound crazy, but at the same time, you're going to be like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Our bodies, this machine that we're walking in, this meat suit, as I forgot who came up with that term, this machine is highly intelligent. God or whoever you believe created us was not fucking around. Can I say bad words?
No, yeah, completely, please.
God was not fucking around when he or she or it made us.
Yeah.
So when you go outside, when you go to the beach, when you go to the pool, and you wear your sunglasses and you lie out there in the sun, your body, your skin, your solar panel, which is your skin, which has thousands upon thousands of light receptors on it, thinks it's indoors. So the sunglasses are signaling the brain to signal the body to not release very specific hormones that will protect you from burning.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
You know how I believe literally the body is capable of so many unique things. Like, it's very regenerative. I'm a firm believer that we can, it's scientifically proven that we can think ourselves into pretty much growing more muscle mass and healing parts of our body. Like, you'd be surprised when you give it the opportunity to show up for you, the amazing things that it can actually do. When you treat it right, you respect it, and you listen to it.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge promoter for that. I see it, like I've kind of told you, in the hospital. I've seen it so many times, like stress, what we put into our body, the way we treat our bodies. I feel like it aids so much into the outcomes that we have when it comes to our health. It can exacerbate disease or honestly help in aiding to heal it.
Epigenetics.
Yeah.
That falls under epigenetics, which is another word that a lot of people like, what the hell does that mean?
I'm not even too familiar with epigenetics that much. Do you mind elaborating a little bit?
I mean, best I could. From what my understanding, epigenetics is lifestyle.
Yeah.
So if you are genetically predisposed to, say, diabetes, your father had it, your grandfather had it, or, your mother or whatever, it's passed down. If you change your lifestyle, you could actually change that genetic response to that particular disease that runs in the family. So if you do all the same things your dad did, eat the same way, of course, genetics is going to do what it's going to do.
It makes sense because you're doing the same things that they were doing. Yeah.
There's another thing you said before I forget, how you could think your way.
Yeah.
So we've all heard of placebo, the placebo effect. Have you ever heard of the nocebo effect?
No.
Is that like pretending you don't have something and it'll eventually kind of go away? And is that what it is?
No, it's the opposite. It is thinking you're sick and thinking your way into being sick.
I've seen that firsthand
Yeah.
so many times. It's actually crazy because this was a few months ago in the hospital. They had me on an oncology unit, and this woman has a history of mets to her brain. So she just wasn't feeling too hot. She was just a little sluggish, went into the hospital, and of course they're going to put her in an MRI machine, do a CT, see what's up there. And the doctors are like, we still want to do more tests, but we think that the Mets might be back. And then I'm not even kidding you, with that same day, she became like, she wasn't able to talk as fluently as she previously was. She had difficulty swallowing. And I'm like, calm down. Like, we don't know that. She was literally like so sad. She's like, they're back. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm like, calm down. We don't know what's going on yet. Like, let's wait for the doctors. It might take a little bit. Personally, I don't think it's fair they even brought that up to begin with.
Yeah.
But she started experiencing these symptoms. And then guess what? Literally like 2 days later, this poor woman, they walk in, they're like, it was a fluke. You don't have meds. There's no cancer. Like, you're fine. But and then like, it's so weird though, because after that though, her speech came back. She was able to swallow fine. She stopped having headaches.
Yep.
And I'm just like, this needs to be more widely talked about. It's also proven too. I was looking at a study where like when doctors tell their patients the shortest recovery time, they actually end up recovering faster versus when you tell them the longest one, it takes longer. I'm like, why isn't this being talked about?
Because it doesn't support the medical industrial complex.
I know. I know.
Yep.
I'm just saying, I've seen it, and it's been so prevalent in my life. I know you mentioned to me too. I'm like, the more I started having a more curious experience with life and like taking care of myself and putting like my well-being and my mental health as a priority, I've never felt more energized and younger in my entire life.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you told me you're like,
You could say my age.
you're 57, and like the energy you bring and the presence and honestly even how you look, like, it's amazing.
Save for the grays. And the
So
gut.
what are some key things in your life that you do for yourself to make sure you're optimizing your health and just your mentality?
Well, first and foremost, sleep.
Okay.
I take sleep very, very seriously. Sleep is more important than exercise and nutrition combined.
Okay.
I make sure I get to sleep no later than 3 hours after the sun goes down. Of course, it depends on time of year. I wake up with the sun
Okay.
or slightly before the sun. The first light I get in my eyes, provided there's already, it's first light outside is natural light. I go outside. If the sun's just coming up over the horizon, and of course I live in the city, so coming up over the house across the street. So the first 40 minutes of sunlight does not hurt your eyes. There's no UV light present, and this is all Jack Cruz, by the way. I will look in the direction of the sun. I won't look directly at the sun, even though I can, because there's no UV light present. So I'll look in that general direction of the sun while standing on my grass, on my lawn, barefoot.
Grounding yourself and starting your
Grounding
circadian rhythm.
and setting that circadian, bringing down the melatonin and activating the cortisol release. So I do that. I do 10 if I'm in a hurry. 20 minutes is what I like to shoot for. And if I have time that morning, I'll even do 30 minutes of just stretching, some qigong right at that sun on that grass. Right after that, jump into a cold plunge. From there, then I make my coffee. So at this point, it's like an hour later. I don't do coffee right away. I am not against coffee. I'm a snob. I make sure my coffee is not more than 3 weeks roasted. So I get my beans, and there's a roast date on the brand, the various brands that I get. So I make sure I don't want any mycotoxins in me.
A lot of coffee has mold in it too.
Immediately, like after 3 weeks of mold, after 3 weeks of roasting, mycotoxins start to develop. So I do that. I throw some MCT oil in there. I throw some ghee. For those who don't know what ghee is,
It's also MCT oil.
medium chain triglycerides. It's coconut oil, but something is removed so it doesn't have that coconutty taste. I don't know how they extract it.
Would coconut oil do like the same thing though?
Yeah, when I'm out of MCT, I just use straight coconut oil.
Okay.
And it tastes, I got a little bit of a tropical coffee.
I love me some coconut.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Before I started making my own lotion out of beef tallow, I was using coconut oil on my skin, which is great, but the beef tallow is just next level. So there's that, right? There's the MCT, the bulletproof coffee is what it's called.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of it.
It's called bulletproof. your question was
Pretty
how-
much, what
right.
do you do to
Yeah.
optimize your health and make you feel the
So-
best? Because you're doing fabulous at this age.
I'm also loving this schedule thing you're doing, by the way. So keep going.
Circadian rhythm.
Because
You're like, take me through your day.
Yeah, seriously.
Circadian rhythm. Okay, so then when I do finally eat something, it's going to be a high fat. Well, I mean, it really depends. If I don't do the MCT oil and I just have straight black coffee or with a little raw cream in it, then I'll have a high protein, high fat breakfast. So
Okay.
3 eggs and some bacon.
Nice.
And I use either beef tallow or bacon fat or butter or ghee. I stay away from all seed oils, like the plague, which I recommend everyone do.
Can you share with us why people should stay away from seed oils?
Well, for one, they're highly oxidative, and they go rancid. When you heat them up, they become rancid,
Okay.
and our body does not know what to do with them. We don't digest them properly. And then if you even think about the just all of the different processes they have to go through
Yeah.
to extract oil out of a little tiny seed.
It's
you
in
know?
everything though, which I'm so.
It is in
Yeah.
everything. That's
It's so hard. I will admit, it's very hard to get away from.
well, if you're cooking your own food, it's not that hard to get away from. As long as you're staying away from packaged foods. And I
Yeah.
mean, it is hard. Like, say, if you want to buy tortillas,
Yeah.
there's always like sunflower or safflower oil in there. It's ridiculous. So you have to kind of source it and find your own, or make your own, like basically what me and Kiki are doing.
Yeah.
Bread, I stay away from folic acid or any bread. I pretty much only do sourdough anyway because it's pre-digested. But if you're looking at a label of bread, you want to make sure there's no folic acid in there, and you want to stay away from 2 words which are positive sounding words, but they're tricks.
Okay.
Fortified,
Okay.
enriched.
I was gonna say, is it enriched?
Yeah.
All
Those are 2 bad words when it comes to bread, to grains.
Okay.
You want to find 3 ingredients, excuse me. If it's pasta, durum semolina wheat, and water.
Okay.
And there are brands out there that have, like, pasta is actually easier than bread.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know of any like bread brands that you would recommend?
I
right
do
off the bat?
Ezekiel bread, but now have you heard of it?
Yeah, Ezekiel bread, it's got a lot of grains in it. I would say Ezekiel bread would be really good for us if we really knew how those grains were grown.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's another huge problem in this country, glyphosate. Are you familiar with glyphosate?
I've heard of it. I'm not too familiar with like.
It's this Roundup. You've heard of Roundup? Monsanto's Roundup?
Yep.
So that's in everything. That's in every wheat brand, all flour, any of that. And then there's no escaping it. It's a forever chemical, or at least a half-life of forever. It's everywhere.
Hold on, really? So what is this chemical exactly?
So
It's a weed killer.
So
Oh,
you know
okay.
Roundup, like you would get at like Home Depot to kill your weeds?
No, I don't.
You
I
never-
don't kill weeds.
Okay, that's okay.
I don't. I love being outside, but I like stay with the weeds and like they're my friends. We're good.
When you become a homeowner, that's like the biggest thing.
Okay.
It's funny you should say that, because homeowners are the biggest abusers of Roundup,
Yep.
because they don't really follow the directions and they just spray the shit out of their driveway.
Oh
Whereas
my gosh.
farmers, they need to make sure every penny counts, so they use it to
Yeah.
a T and they dilute it properly. But it's too much. Europe has banned it, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we should ban it
Yeah, but here's the thing:
But-
there's no way to get rid of it anymore.
because it's like just in the soil now.
It's in the soil. It's in the rain. It evaporates.
Really?
It comes back. You can go to the most remote parts of the Yukon and take a plant and test it. There's going to be glyphosate.
That's why I'm so big on like just educating people on this stuff though. So like don't get me wrong, we are pretty far gone on a lot of things. Like we've essentially like ruined our soil in a way, and like the things that it's just not the same as it used to be. Our food doesn't have the same nutrients, and we are not doing anything good for the environment. But I'm hoping though, when people become a little bit more aware of this stuff, like we can take tiny footsteps in the right direction to kind of like preserve what we do have left, or hopefully like bodies are regenerative. The Earth's hopefully going to eventually regenerate itself.
Oh, yes.
But it takes us being aware of these kind of things. And I do get at some point when they created these things, probably people didn't know any better. They didn't think long term. But now's the time where we have to start thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to say all of these modern inventions and modern ways of agriculture and were all created with nefarious, reasons.
Yeah.
They thought they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, sometimes people are just oblivious to things until we actually see the impact of it. We think it's good and we find out it's not. But when I say it all the time, like when you finally know the problem, it's your job to do better.
When you know better, you do better.
Yes, exactly. I say it all the time.
But here's a funny one. I like we're going here. My teacher says that all the time. When we know better, we do better.
Yep.
But there's one thing that keeps us from always doing better.
Okay.
And that's something I like to say is the human condition boils down to 3 words.
Okay.
I know, but.
But. I don't believe in that word, though. Like I said before, but.
You don't believe in it.
I know.
But, walk outside and ask anybody on the street. There's so many people that I talk to, I work in recovery centers. Mm-hmm. I do breathwork in recovery centers.
Oh, amazing.
And I would say 99.9% of these kids, they're not all kids, but I guess everyone's a kid to me now, right?
Stop.
They all vape.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one of them has a vape in their hands. It's the phone and the vape. And I try to talk to them about, you might want to stop doing that. You're coming to my class. You're doing breath work. It helps you. You talk about how you feel better. You're breathing better. And then you go and hit that thing. I know, but... And it's always, I know, but...
Yeah.
But I'm addicted. Or it's but the nicotine feels good.
It feels good.
I've heard every...
I know. And the thing is, though, is we are creatures of habit. That's the problem, I feel is a lot of times, especially now, we're we grow up in a microwave generation where everybody wants just this instant dopamine fix. Everybody wants to just feel good right now. They don't think about the long-term effects. And that's why here I'm just encouraging people a lot of times to take those baby steps and try something new and just try. Because even when you were talking about food, though, a lot of people, it can be intimidating.
Oh, big time.
A lot of people are okay, so now I have to go get adequate sunlight, and then I have to put my feet in the ground and make time for that, and then I have to eat my food and make it the right way. But speaking from personal experience is when you just take that first step and that tiny step and stay consistent with it, the next step seems a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, you're a year or two down the line, and then holding yourself accountable has turned you into this rock star of a person. It's not like you have to quit everything right away. It's those little steps that add up over time. And the next thing you know, you're I'm showing up for myself in ways I didn't even know how to before.
Especially when you start feeling the results.
Yeah.
That kind of inspires you to stay on it and keep going.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, though, to note that it's okay if you fall off or if you do have a cheat meal or something, to not beat yourself up, because then now you're going backwards, and if people are on that trajectory and they're doing all of these good things for themselves, and then one day they do something wrong, and then they get all down on themselves about it, that could have that could be counterintuitive and send them down
another rabbit hole. I've already quit, I might as well just go right back to where I was before.
So it's important to give ourselves grace when we do that. And I mean, here I am sharing this. I got to hear it too. I'm saying it because I need to hear myself say it, because I need to see myself do it.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I ask, what are some things that you can, you would say to someone to in a way sort of, be kinder to yourself? What are some of the things that you talk about that can really help people through those things? Because there are people we mess up, right? And we're not going to be perfect, and we're definitely going to plateau some points. And if anything, we go down. And so what are some things that you could share with our audience about things that you can just sort of remind yourself of, and talk about ways to that be kinder to yourself in that way?
There's various ways to go about that. I would say one really effective one would be to reach out to someone else in need, to help someone else, to be of service. That will always get you out of yourself. Other ways would be do something for yourself. Go outside, go take a walk, do a breathwork session on your own. Just find a YouTube breathwork, a 10-minute Wim Hof.
Go on your app that you just became a part of,
Go
right?
on the Breath Source. I'm on this new app called the Breath Source. Many ways, grace. Give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself for, veering off of that road you're on, That's really important, to give yourself grace. What else? I would say...
have you always given yourself grace?
Is this a comedy show? No.
I mean, but that's the thing though, is like, especially too, like me over here, like happy, bubbly, like think positive, like all of us have been through those points though, man.
Well, hey, I mean, you just kind of hit something. Sometimes we got to give ourselves grace for not giving ourselves grace.
Yeah, like actually, it's okay to have like these down moments. We are human. I like to say like we're so much more capable of things, but it's like, even like to me, you are just like this rock star of a person, like doing all these good things that are for you. But like, even you're over here like, I haven't always been like this. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like,
no, yeah.
And if anything, that just proves though how far you can come from those down moments. That's why I'm so big on reflecting. I'm like, yes, it might sting a little bit right now, or you might not feel like you're living up to your full potential, but at the same time, look how far you've probably came.
That's for sure. That's another one, is maybe do an inventory. Like what they do in a 12-step program. Write out an inventory. Just, celebrate the little wins in life. Journaling is another one.
That's huge.
Journal, yeah.
That's something I consistently recommend to everyone.
Back to going outside, ground. Go stand on the earth.
Yeah, being in nature.
Yeah, being in nature. Listen, mindful walk. Go on a walk in nature. But really turn off your thoughts and focus on the sound of the birds, the sound of the wind in the trees. Like, as corny and woo-woo as that sounds, that shit is real.
I'm curious for you, because you and Kiki also do like one-on-one coaching and like these group retreats, like group sessions in a way too.
Yeah.
If you don't, and you don't have to bring up anyone's personal experience, I don't expect you to, but what's a lot of things that you see people coming to you for to help them with in regards to like the cold plunging and breath work? Like, what's some common themes you see?
I would say the most common theme is just daily stressors, daily living, daily stress, career stress, money stress, relationship stuff. I had this gentleman come who was having marital problems. Okay. And, sometimes breath work can lead to clarity that doesn't always benefit everyone. So he came in.
Scary clarity when you realize something.
Clarity.
You're like, I think I knew that, but that's actually,
Well, it wasn't him. So he came in, he did a session with me and had a lot of clarity and was so moved by it. He's like, I have to have my spouse come in here and do this. Mm-hmm. So he scheduled a session for his spouse, and they were having marital problems. And she came and she did a session. And at the end of the session, she said, I have clarity. I think I know what I need to do. Yeah.
See,
it's for the better.
I know, but that's the thing. I know so many people are like, oh my gosh, like this world just got blown up. But like, I'm sure we've all had experience like this where we stayed in things that we were just so accustomed to that we thought were the right thing but was actually the complete wrong thing for us. And essentially all we ended up doing was prolonging our own suffering.
That's what pretty much is. We just sped up the process.
Yeah.
I don't know what ended up happening between the two of them, But from that initial share after her session, it looked like she was going to end the relationship. And he had her come because he thought he was going to be saving his marriage.
I was gonna say he probably came in with a sense of optimism, and she came like,
Right.
That's huge.
But it was optimistic
Because,
for her because
yes.
she was like, I know what I need to do now.
Wow, I mean, it's so, but in a way that's so powerful to come from the fact that like everyone's experience.
And this is just
so
from like the
different.
breathwork experience in a way. Like she got clarity through, like, because I've been in your sessions. You're not telling anybody to think one way or another. You're like, whatever comes up, comes up. I'm just a guide of breathing.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
you
we
have
all
no
have
influence
our-
on it, really.
We have the answers within us.
Yeah, completely.
And her answer was probably, unfortunately, not the answer he wanted her to have.
But there's been times I've been broken up with even, and I'm like, thank God that happened long term. You know what I
Right,
mean? Because if I can
right.
only, like, if I stayed with this person,
For
we
sure.
were never a match. And like, I feel like we all teeter around like emotion so much where like we don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And in the process, though, we hurt our own emotions and our own relationship with ourselves.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's not okay either.
And staying in it.
Yeah.
Well, like you were saying a minute ago, the staying in it, sometimes we humans stay in our misery or in a not good situation solely because it's familiar.
Yeah.
Not for any other reason other than we're comfortable in it because at least we know what the outcome is going to be versus that scary door number 3, like what's on the other side.
But you are blocking yourself from so many blessings by
I
not
know.
walking through that door.
I know.
You know, one thing that I do, I actually have talked with clients in the past about this, and to really help them kind of understand what that third door is.
Yeah.
Is we do this in session where I'll ask them. I said, "What do you know for sure?" And
Nothing.
That's what I said.
and that's the thing, right? So the thing is this, right? So for us, it's like nothing, but I bring people down to the ultimate basics, like ultimate basics. And I say, you know, you're here in the location you're in. Why are you here? You know, so then you say, well, I'm here because of this. And I say, well, you're here because of this, but you're here to talk about what? This. So like when you end up start breaking it down for people, they end up actually being able to kind of clarify those thoughts because so much of it is so loud.
Yeah.
Right. Opening
And
that third
realizing
door
why they're there
is
to begin
so
with
loud.
then, like, this is why I came.
And they come to it on their own.
And they come to
you
it on
kind
their
of just
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you build that
Yeah.
roadmap, you build that foundation for people to understand, okay, wait, this is why I'm here, this is what I need to discuss, and this is where I want to see myself. So, and then through that, we end up talking about goals, right?
Yeah.
And then those goals are then what lead us to opening that third door, to feel that bravery to opening that third door and feeling those, and kind of feeling that moment.
Yeah.
It's funny you're talking about this because just today I had a session at my regular Wednesday recovery center, and one of the clients, and this is not the first time he's done this, just lies there. It's, you know,
During the breathwork session?
yeah, it's different
I'll
than,
admit I like to do that sometimes. I'm like,
yeah, but it's different. So when you actually go online, you book your session, you're coming for
yeah.
for a
I
reason.
know I
You're
need
coming
it.
with
Is
an
why I'm
intention
coming, yeah.
for healing. In recovery centers, it's a little different because sometimes they're not necessarily forced to do group,
For sure.
but they're like, and they just kind of just, like I said, they'll be vaping in the middle of a class. So this particular young man was just lying there. And again, not the first time he's done this. So at the end of class, at the end of group rather, when we had everyone do their shares and everyone kind of left, I kind of asked him, just point blank, and you've heard me say this out loud during session,
Okay.
why are you here?
yeah.
Right? So I asked him, I said, I'm not going to say his name, why are you here? Like, not just here in this group breathing. Why are you here in this facility? Second, because that question you could take it further. Like, why are you here on this planet?
That's what I thought. I'm like, oof, that's a deep question to ask somebody.
Well,
Because a lot of people are like,
he did not. Yeah, but it sparked, it planted a little seed in him. And later, when we were in we were walking to our car, he was out in the patio smoking a real cigarette this time, because a lot of them do both.
Okay.
And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, thank you." And I was like, "For the session?" He's like, "No, thank you for kind of calling me out like that, like asking me why I'm here.
I love that.
And I really need to reassess and rethink why I'm here." And in his case, he meant at the recovery center.
Yeah.
Why is he here?
Are they there willingly, or is it a place where people can kind of bring their loved ones in a way, or like it's like court mandated? Is it
Nudge from the judge is
Okay.
what they call it. His particular case, I don't know.
Okay.
Everyone's different. Some are there because they want
so
to
it's
be.
a mix?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like people do need that though, and that's where it's like I'll even tell Matt sometimes I know I come off a little harsh, or like I know that what I'm talking about is very big and it can be intimidating to some people, but you never actually know what some people need to hear. Like I wouldn't tone yourself down just to make other people feel comfortable or just accept sometimes. I do believe in accepting people for who they are, but I feel like asking a question and encouraging people to think, like, you never know what that person might need. And I kind of wanted to touch bases on this because I know you brought this up and it's something kind of you experienced and near and dear to your heart. In regards to other people, this came up kind of in my mind when we were talking about the marriage, is like we talk about outgrowing individuals in our life in a way, or just not being on like the same kind of energetic field that we used to be with them. And it's in a sense like heartbreaking sometimes, but have you experienced that? How have you kind of like gained clarity when it comes to like, I'm just stepping into a new me, and sometimes you leave people behind when you do that?
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you asked that. And that's a hard one for me.
Yeah.
I'm at a point in my life where I feel, and this is probably just my perspective or my perception of it, but I feel like I've outgrown a lot of people that were very close to me and people I grew up with.
We talk about this too all the time, and we're
Good friends. I still love them dearly. A lot of them are kind of confused at what I'm doing. So that's what leads me to believe that maybe I've outgrown them, or maybe I haven't outgrown them. Maybe they're just growing in a different way and they just don't get it, which is fine. But it is difficult for me because you think you have these lifelong friends and they'll support you no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I just like, this is kind of emotional I could get emotional talking about this because I feel like they've just dogged me out. Mm. Like I've invited them to classes. Yeah. I've invited them to just do it with me. Like, just come to my house. Let's do breath work. They don't want to do it. Granted, maybe there's some fear in that.
I was going to say, this is coming from just like me thinking, not like a blaming, but like, have you ever thought maybe they're scared of what's going to come up for themselves?
Yeah, that could very well be.
Like, it's probably not a you thing. It's potentially a them thing.
Yeah, which ends up being a me thing because it's me
because it hurts.
Thinking that it's a me thing.
For sure.
It's a touchy subject. And I'm pretty sure they'll never watch this. So they'll never know any of this.
Is that comforting for you?
No, I really wish they would watch this.
Yeah, okay.
I really wish they would. I grew up with a group of guys here in Hollywood, not far from the studio. Some of them I have just straight up like, why won't you experience what I'm doing? Like when I was in the restaurant business, you would come eat there. You would support my family's restaurant. Mm-hmm. When I was playing a show, you would come to the club, you would come watch us. You know what I mean? But why won't you do this thing? And again, it might be because they're afraid to face some of their own emotions. Or maybe they just think I've lost my mind and I'm cuckoo and I'm doing all this woo-woo stuff.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
You haven't asked them why? Like,
some of them I have.
And what's
some
the
of
response?
them I haven't. Okay, well, this could be just me reading into things, but they're like, yeah, no, what are you talking about? No, I'm just busy. Life is busy. So what I read into that is they're just bullshitting me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know their lives are busy.
Yeah.
I know that they all have their own careers, their own families. But again, I see, and this is where social media is terrible, and I try to stay away. I see that they go to each other, they do stuff
Yeah.
with one another still. They're like not even inviting me to stuff.
But let me ask you this, though. There's a few questions. Through this path, have you met other people?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
You.
Also a plethora of other, I'm
so
sure.
many.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I'm like, I feel like so many, and yes, it's sad because like nobody wants to really lose anybody they've ever cared about. And I'm like, just because we grow apart does not mean my feelings ever change. Like I fully love some people in my life, even though we don't talk. And it's like, just because we're different doesn't mean I like judge you, or it's just like, I wish you were a part of this life. But like my other question was going to be is like, what would have been a bigger loss or what's a bigger win for you? Is like staying with those friends and not having this life that you have now, or having this life and unfortunately like you're just not as close with them. Like which one would you choose?
Touche. I mean, yeah, you're right on point there. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything in life is kind of a give and take.
yeah.
Can I also say one thing too, just in regards to your classes and like maybe people that are like apprehensive about it?
Because that's why I bring this up, is because like
It is.
when I go back home to Chicago and even mention breathwork to people, because it's not like as big out there, people are like, huh? What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And get like that weird look on their face.
Yeah.
It takes a big person to come to your class. It's not easy. Like walking through that front door is one thing, but actually being a part of that experience and being a part of that and surrendering yourself to not only the experience, but to also your own identity and who you are as a person and the emotions that you are holding in that space. It's hard.
Absolutely.
And you know, in a way, but I say that in the best way possible,
Yeah.
because I think that so many people are in a way sort of scared to do that. You know, I definitely was at first when I did. And I say, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right.
I guess everyone in their own time. And I mean, I say this
Yeah.
in class all the time. Thank your nervous system for protecting you.
Yeah.
It's been doing that your entire life. You can now give it permission to take a rest and feel. Like, what do I always say? We can't heal if we don't feel.
Yeah.
I believe surrendering is actually empowering. So it's got a bad rap, this word surrender.
Or like even emotions have kind of like a bad rap too, in my opinion. Like people are like, oh,
Yeah.
you're too over emotional. But can I just say that like that was kind of the environment I grew up in, is like being emotional is bad. Like, no, like you're just supposed to be like this happy girl or like not speak up. And for so long, like I wasn't even able to like cry at a movie, or like I'd be in a hospital setting and watching somebody die and I kind of felt numb. Like for me, even now to like cry and feel the sadness that's like built up into me, like, no, it's not like the best feeling, but like it's so rewarding at the same time though. Like I can't even really put it to words. It just makes me feel so whole as a person, being able to experience those emotions that we've been taught to bottle down our entire life.
Yeah. It's a release for sure. It's like
Yeah.
a valve being like, you've built it up for so long.
Yeah.
To a lot of our viewers, I get this is probably something new. I get this is probably something scary. I get this is probably something you might tell people you're doing and they look at you kind of funny. But like me and Matt firsthandly have experienced this. You've made your life kind of out of it. This impact that it has on us is life-changing. And I truly believe that it can only impact your life for the better. And when you are a better version of yourself, you feel better. I get you're scared of losing people, but guess what? You're going to find better people for you to elevate your life. So please do it. Because like what's more scary to me is living in this mediocre numbness for other people and realizing I missed out on so much personal joy because I was scared of what other people might think.
Yeah. And that's a big one for me, is scared of what other people think.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm still working on. And you know, it's a journey. It takes time, and some days are better than others, but for sure that's something. I mean, that's one big takeaway from today is hearing you say something I know so deeply, but I need to hear it all the time.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to hear it, and you're like, you're scared of what people might think of you, but guess what? Because of you being who you are, you have two people sitting on both sides of you right now, literally applauding you for the work that you're doing. So before we do end this podcast, though, can you please share with our viewers any way to get a hold of you, any resources?
Sure. We did mention the Breath Source.
Yes.
I'm on an app. They're launching me in the month of September. I don't know when you're going to drop this episode, but in the month of September, they've added a new tile, which is a recovery tile. So they have different tiles, exercise, sleep, different categories, so to speak. And so they created this tile for my style of breathwork, which is helping people in recovery. The Breath Source, it's a great app. So if you're familiar with all of those Calm, Insight Timer, all those apps, that this one is specifically geared towards breathwork. You could find me on Instagram at Respirospace, RESPIROSPACE. Respiro means breath in Italian. I'm Italian. My parents born in Italy. So Respirospace is my website as well, respirospace.com. DM me if you want to reach out, if you have any questions. If you're in Los Angeles, we are, as you know, hallowed ground every Tuesday evening, every Saturday morning. We're in Burbank every Thursday night at a place called The Wellness of Oz. We do retreats, we do corporate events. I'm at various recovery centers. I've got a TikTok and an Instagram and a Facebook, but I don't do those. I mean, I have one, but I don't use that shit.
Yeah.
Instagram is it.
We will link everything in the description. So to anyone who wants to check them out, please do. Your life will never be the same once meeting this man, I guarantee it.
True.
So we will link everything below. And I just want to, on that note, Gianni, thank you so much for being here. It means the world to us. And this was truly an enriching conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Sure.
And thank you guys so much for listening. I love you.
Thanks. Thank you.